Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of RevTalks. I'm Patrick, joined with Antonio over at Seltz. How's it going today, Antonio? Of
Pretty good, Patrick, and thank you so much for inviting me.
course, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to be here on RevTalks. Could you give us a little overview about Seltz, what you guys kind of do in the AI space, and how you guys are sort of operating in today's day and age?
Yeah, at Seltz, we are building the infrastructure that is powering LLMs and AI these days. These models are trained on huge amount of data. They're great at reasoning, but they're pretty bad at memorizing, and definitely you don't want to use some of their neurons to memorize things. But instead, API tools like Cells will provide the right context, the right facts to ground the generation or the task execution of these, large models.
I see. So it's kind of helping out the other models almost learn in a way through data and, and analytics and things like that. I know you guys have a couple of different service offerings when it comes down to the actual software. Can you talk briefly about how customers actually initially find you, where they typically come from, what that kind of looks like for you guys?
Yeah, actually, this is something new for me. It's something that we're experiencing on the way, and the way I've seen it's where people are coming. It's usually through the content that we publish, in particular benchmarks. They look at benchmarks, they see the difference both in terms of like latency and effectiveness, and that's really what probably our end users value the most. And that's possible to tune effectiveness, to tune latency of our API, also because we have built it from scratch.
Yeah, I see. And so you mentioned content. Obviously, LinkedIn in today's day and age is huge with partnerships and videos and posts. I see a lot of traction. Inbox Rev gets a significant amount of customers through cold email and YouTube. So that's obviously content too. What kind of content sources specifically is Sales utilizing to attract these customers?
Very technical content, actually. It's anything that shows essentially how things work when you use Seltz. And in particular, we've recently released like a benchmark around news, and it was really, really for people from the feedback that I'm receiving. It's really, really interesting to see the trade-off between latency and quality of the result. Or in this case specifically, it was the answer generation quality, so and accuracy how accurate the answer of an LLM was after plugging that model to Seltz. And we recently also we have created like an MCP server such that you can connect with your preferred chatbot tool coding agent. And we you know, communicate that through a video, for example, on how to use this MCP server to actually go and find out recent events, recent happenings, and things like that. So yeah, we use LinkedIn a lot to communicate for sure.
Okay, perfect. And I know you mentioned technical content, so I assume the predominant demographic you guys are typically serving is more of a CTO at a company, say somebody that's dealing with technology, or somebody. I'm assuming it's obviously not financial. What's kind of your ideal customer profile for Seltz? Who do you guys directly want to get in front of?
Yeah, yeah. We are a technical, and it's actually coming from research academia, and so we are really really connected to researchers and applied scientists that nowadays work in tech and companies out there, and that they're really really interested in how we solve the problem. And I think that has been working very very pretty well. And yeah, we definitely talk to CTOs. So that's definitely the end goal, but I think that starts from the tech team, right? The entire tech team. And for us, it's really I personally really appreciate, given my background, also to have this technical conversation with the team and understand how we can solve their problems and why we can do that better than what they've been using.
Absolutely. Definitely going from technical to technical persona is a lot easier than going, marketing to technical. Technicality, you can speak the same language, talk about specific pain points, things like that. And obviously, it's much easier if you really have a technical background. So I'm sure that's obviously helped you throughout the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to also say that sometimes, if you look at the results, things are so obvious that even non-technical people, right, like really appreciate it. If you look at the trade-off between latency and effectiveness, for example, which is really what we are measuring and we are really proud of, it's so clear to everybody in a company that obviously you want to reduce latency as much as possible. In particular, because if you plug one of these tools, like if you plug Seltz to an LLM, right, or any web search API to an LLM, and one of the requirement is to gather context first, the LLM won't even start producing any token until the search operation, the search request has been completed. And so, being extremely efficient to start streaming tokens to a user is, the very first thing that you as a user can appreciate is like, I can start seeing my tokens, I can start seeing my response very, very quickly, potentially in hundreds of milliseconds, as we are doing today, instead of like seconds or tens of seconds. So efficiency is so clear, and people are really excited when we show like how fast we can be. At the same time, you don't want to trade quality at all, right? You want to still maintain like very good quality, and for quality, I mean the quality of the context that you provide to the LLM. And high the signal to noise ratio is in one of these document passages text that we give at the moment as context. We're planning to expand on that and give more than text, but that's coming next.
Right, that makes total sense. And I know obviously right now with, the AI bubble being somewhat big already, a lot of people are in fierce competition with AI with outreach, AI with technicality, AI with implementation, things like that. I mean, how do you guys stay cutting edge? How do you stay top of the market? How do you stay competing with these obviously pumped up $1 billion, VC backed companies?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the competition for us stays at the technology level. We don't cut corners when it comes to building the right technology. I think we can we can cut corners. We can go faster, essentially, on the commercial side if the product is has a very high, is very good quality, is very high in terms of like expectation, is a very solid product. And so our goal is not to cut corners, maybe like be a little bit slower on the technology that we're building and accelerate on the sales. In fact, that's what we have seen, right? And we have been waiting for 6, 7 months these days to release our first endpoint, our first product, our first vertical. But things are now moving extremely fast because people are immediately realizing the difference.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially as you go into different verticals, things change and things obviously move faster. Processes get expedited. Businesses use technology better and everything like that. When it comes down to obviously pricing with your solution, what are some of the ranges? I know you guys have low ticket, project based. Just kind of touch briefly on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's actually one of our characteristics anyway, like one of our key principles. Because we have built the entire technology, we are also able to deploy this technology if that's needed. So we pretty much offer two different type of the same product, which is, one we host it for you and you pay per usage. That usually comes in a cost per thousands of queries. And the other approach that we have, because we build the index, we build the asset, we build the entire system, and it's self-contained. We don't have to go to a third-party provider to answer your questions, your queries, right? That search engine, that context engine can actually be deployed within your cluster, which also means you're paying for the hardware and you have full control of the user, and it's kind of like a flat rate. So the different way we commercialize the product, it's completely different, and it's sort of like fulfill the needs for different type of customers as well.
I see. I see. So you guys obviously offer a range of the implementation of the software. Other than lower ticket, can you kind of talk briefly about maybe some of the mid-size or larger size projects that Seltz would kind of implement into on sort of a project basis for a specific company? How would that kind of work? Would you guys do like data integration or data migration for a business? What are kind of some services you got to provide there?
Yeah, yeah. I can't go too much into the details of of our customers, but like I can say that we already have interactions with a pretty large lab. As you said, the data integration is one of the fundamental piece. Obviously, we are providing that integration specifically for them based on their needs. And yeah, and the goal is obviously to replicate that process.
Nice, nice. And so you're referencing maybe larger project, obviously, without giving the details or anything like that. Okay, sweet. And so, do you find that some of those projects are more custom projects where you guys are doing development with custom, or is it kind of copy and paste? I'm sure at scale, it's kind of hard to just have a black and white solution. It's like every single business is a little bit different at that stage.
There's a lot of customization. That's why we are building the product, because we can customize it quickly, specifically for the need. And so, yeah, for this specific project I'm referring to, it pretty much pre-building an entire pipeline just for them. Obviously, we have learnings coming out of like these new implementations that we do every time, and we actually go back and reintegrate these implementations for all the customers and improve the entire pipeline for ourselves, right? So it's actually very valuable also for ourselves to, go into these adventures with the new customers and sort of like customize things for them, make it like very, very personalized for their use case. As the new findings come out, and we are very happy when these things happen, because then we can go back and reuse it. So yeah.
That's nice, nice, sweet. And obviously, you guys are growing at a healthy rate, things like that. As we move past these couple quarters in 2026, what are some goals you Seltz specifically has moving forward? Whether it's pushing a specific service offering or project, or kind of more technical heads in the front. What are you guys kind of focused on?
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I think, we actually have several goals. I don't even know where to start, but like one of the main one is to expand on different data and data sets and the verticals. Our customers have shown interest in so many other verticals that we don't serve today, for which we already have planning and we already start like experimenting and building for them. But we want to make this public. We want to, you know, expand these verticals for everybody. Let them try and see and get more feedbacks. So definitely like the coverage of the web that we have, it's something we want to work on. And then obviously like, we put out a very efficient, very fast API already. I don't think that's not even close to what the kind of speed latency that we can get. We want to optimize more towards that direction. Um, and speed latency in general is the other flip of the coin for effectiveness, quality, and cost. Obviously, if you spend 1 second running a program, right, you're paying a certain amount of like compute cost. If your query runs in half a second, then you can run two queries at the same time, which means you're reducing the cost for running that query, right? Uh, and that's the way I see that. That's the way why latency for me is very important, because it reflects in the end cost, and we definitely want to offer like the cheapest price possible to our customers. I keep hearing customers coming and saying, "Yeah, if I run so many queries, and those are the many queries that I need to run every month to make my models better, I will end up paying like millions of dollars." And we are, in my opinion, like one of the cheapest on the market on selling this specific product. I want to make that even cheaper than that, so they can save money and they can scale faster.
And so you're looking at it from more of an impact standpoint, with obviously economically competing on price, but not just being the cheapest in the room and things like that, but really servicing the customer base at a high level while keeping obviously your margins good, but not too crazy of an investment on their end. Because obviously, I mean, you and me know both specific AI implementation tools or softwares out there on the market right now that do charge per usage, I mean, you end up with a $2,000, $3,000 invoice at the end of the month, right? Because the usage, things like that, and it's almost never ending. I think that's very interesting. And I think every single software is kind of trying to figure out like, how do we balance that?
Yeah, yeah. And I would just want to add one thing that basically, if you wrap like a third party solution, there is a, bottom line. You can't really go down that much with your price. Otherwise, you're, hitting a margin problem. And so, pretty much like if you're basing your technology on someone else's product, there is not really like a lot of room for improvement from that perspective. But when it comes to search for LLMs, when it comes to context for LLMs, like these models can run hundreds of queries per second in parallel, which means you have a huge query load that you haven't seen before. So we need to prepare these systems, these engines, these pipelines to handle that massive load. And handling that massive load, if you don't do it efficiently, if you haven't built your technology from the ground up, it's gonna be very, very difficult to scale it up. And we are actually preparing for that since day one.
Definitely a larger market vision in mind with where kind of everything is moving with more pipeline and data and everything. Where exactly is Seltz based out of?
Seltz is a US company, but with a very, very flexible team. We, I'm personally like a big believer of remote work because it's not the location where you're working from. It's really like your background that really matters when you're building a product, in particular at this stage. So we are actually, working from everywhere. Pretty much, it's like a good balance between the US and Europe. And yeah, we have very different time zones, but we still have mechanism in place to kind of stay in sync and stay focused and be compact. So I personally really like that.
Definitely agree. I definitely agree. I think remote work is very key. We have most of the, obviously guys working at Inbox Rev who are either in US onshore or offshore remote. So I think that is definitely next level. And then level above that is AI agents and everything too with that as well. That being said, where can we find you on the internet? What is the Celt's website actually called? Where can we find more information about you and the actual business itself?
Yeah, I mean, you can find Seltz at seltz.ai and you can sign up and try our console at console.seltz.ai. LinkedIn, X.ai are our preferred channels to send updates, but we also have a newsletter and we will start publishing more regularly. And yeah, I mean, I would say if you have any questions, just hello at seltz.ai. I'm really looking forward to hear from people interested in this segment.
Percent. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day, Antonio, to jump on RevTalks, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Hey, Patrick, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for listening.